Something is happening in Stuttgart, and if you blinked, you might have missed it. Before the first ball was even struck in a real match, before a single point was played under the lights of the Porsche Tennis Grand Prix, a story was already unfolding on the practice courts that had people talking. A 20-year-old from the Philippines walked onto that clay, looked across the net at Linda Noskova, the same woman who had destroyed her just weeks earlier at Indian Wells, and she took her completely apart. Not barely. Not in a tight, could-have-gone-either-way kind of session. Dominantly. Ruthlessly. With a kind of clean, composed tennis that makes coaches stop and stare. And somewhere in that facility, Leylah Fernandez heard about it. And if she did not feel a chill run down her spine, she should have. Because Alexandra Eala is not just showing up to Stuttgart to compete. She is showing up to make a statement, and it feels like the whole women's tour is about to feel it. Let's go back a few weeks first, because you cannot understand what this moment means without understanding where it came from. Indian Wells, 2026. Fourth round. Eala versus Noskova. The result was not just a loss. It was a dismantling. 6-2, 6-love. Those numbers do not lie. Noskova was everywhere that day, overwhelming Eala with pace and power, shutting down every angle, every rhythm, every idea the Filipino tried to execute. It was the kind of scoreline that follows a player around if they let it. The kind that can make you hesitant, a half-step slow, second-guessing yourself when the pressure builds. Some players carry those results like weight. They show up to the next tournament still flinching from the last one. But here is what separates the good ones from the dangerous ones. The dangerous ones use it. They file it away, they go back to work, and they come back with something to prove. Fast forward to Stuttgart. Indoor clay, completely different surface, completely different story. Eala stepped onto that practice court, and she was a different player. Her movement was fluid, her ground strokes were landing exactly where she wanted them, and every time Noskova tried to grab control of a rally, Eala was already one step ahead, redirecting the ball with depth and precision, forcing one extra shot, then another, until the cracks started to show. Because here is the thing about aggressive players like Noskova. When everything is flowing, they are terrifying. But when someone makes them work for it, when someone keeps the ball in play with enough quality that mistakes start creeping in, the aggression that made them dangerous becomes the very thing that breaks them down. And that is exactly what Eala did. She stayed solid, she stayed patient, and she let Noskova self-destruct. This was not a lucky session. This was not a fluke. This was a calculated dismantling from a player who had spent every day since Indian Wells preparing specifically for this. And then you zoom out and look at how that whole preparation week unfolded, and you start to realize just how extraordinary this run-up to Stuttgart actually was. It did not start with Noskova. It started with Coco Gauff, world number 3, reigning US Open champion, one of the most athletically gifted and mentally tough players on the entire tour. Eala spent a full practice session with her, hitting together, building rallies, working through patterns. But what stood out to the people watching was not just the quality of the tennis. It was the dynamic between them. Gauff was offering advice. Real, tactical, elite-level advice about positioning and court construction, the kind of guidance that only someone who has been through the wars at the highest level can give. And Eala was not soaking it up like a wide-eyed newcomer grateful to be in the room. She was receiving it as an equal. There was banter, there was laughter, there was a comfort between these two players that told you everything about where Eala's head is right now. Locked in, confident, ready. And here is the part that makes all of that even more interesting. Earlier this season at Indian Wells, these two did not just practice together. They competed. And Eala won. She took the first set 6-2 and was completely in control of the second when Gauff had to retire. The result stands. The win is hers. So when Coco Gauff is standing across the net from you in a practice session giving you tips, and you know in the back of your mind that you already beat her this year, the level of belief you carry into your next match is on a completely different plane. That confidence is not arrogance. It is earned. It is rooted in something real. And it changes the way you play, the way you move, the way you handle pressure when a set goes sideways and the crowd starts to shift. Then the very next day, if you can believe it, Eala was back on court. This time with Iga Swiatek, 4-time French Open champion, the greatest clay court player of her generation. If you were designing the perfect practice week for someone about to play on indoor clay in one of the most prestigious tournaments on the tour, you would put them on court with Swiatek. Because nobody tests your game on that surface the way she does. The topspin alone is something most players never fully solve. The way she constructs points, builds pressure, and pulls opponents wide before flicking the ball into the open court with that whip of a forehand, it is a completely different kind of problem to solve compared to any other player on tour. Eala went through that. She worked through it. She came out the other side. And then, the very next day, she went out and took Noskova apart. Gauff one day, Swiatek the next, Noskova after that. If you mapped that week out as a training camp, it would look like something from a movie. And now, at the end of all of it, she walks into Stuttgart feeling sharper than she has felt in months, maybe ever, carrying a momentum that would make any opponent nervous. Any opponent, including Leylah Fernandez. Now, let's be clear about something. Fernandez is not a soft draw. She is not someone you pencil in as a win and move on. She is a fighter in every sense of the word. She has been on the biggest stages in tennis. She has won matches she had no business winning, and she has clay court experience that you simply cannot manufacture. A lot of players wilt when the surface slows down and the rallies get longer. Fernandez does not. She leans into it. She grinds. She competes for every single point, and she has the kind of resilience that makes her dangerous even when she is not playing her best tennis. On paper, if you handed this matchup to someone who had been away from tennis for 6 months and asked them to predict it, they would probably back Fernandez. Higher ranked, more experienced, proven on clay, and facing a player who is still relatively new to this level. That is the safe call. But tennis is not played on paper, and right now, the version of Alexandra Eala that is walking into that first-round match is carrying something that rankings and experience cannot fully account for.
Form, belief.
And the very specific kind of hunger that comes from having been through something hard and come out stronger on the other side. This match also carries a layer of narrative that goes beyond pure tennis. It is the first time these two have ever played each other in a singles match. And there is a particular dimension to it that is hard to ignore. Fernandez has Filipino heritage and has spoken about that connection throughout her career. Eala is from the Philippines. When these two step onto the court in Stuttgart, it will be a genuinely historic moment for Filipino tennis and for the community of fans watching from back home who have been waiting for something exactly like this. That is the backdrop. And inside of it, there is a real, competitive tennis match being played out between two genuinely excellent players, one of whom is arriving in perhaps the best form of her career. Everything built towards this. The loss to Noskova at Indian Wells that lit the fire. The sessions with Gauff that sharpened the mind. The hours with Swiatek that tested every corner of her game on clay. The dominant practice performance that sent a message through the whole facility. And now, a first-round match at a WTA 500 event packed with the biggest names in the sport, against an experienced, tough opponent who will not give an inch. This is the kind of match that defines where a player is in their development. Not the easy wins, not the opponents who hand you points. The hard ones against good players on big occasions. And Alexandra Eala has been building her whole week, maybe her whole season, for exactly this. The Stuttgart Open has Elena Rybakina, Iga Swiatek, Coco Gauff, and Jasmine Paolini. It is one of the deepest draws in women's tennis all
year.
And walking into the middle of all that is a player who just spent her preparation week on court with two of the top 3 players in the world, reversed a humiliating scoreline against a top 20 opponent in practice, and is carrying the momentum of a player who genuinely believes she belongs here. Not hopes. Believes. Leylah Fernandez has every reason to be worried. But more than that, every single player left in this draw should be paying attention. Because something is happening with Alexandra Eala. You could feel it building through Indian Wells, through those practice sessions, through the way she carries herself on and off the court. The confidence is real. The form is real. And starting with Fernandez in round 1, Stuttgart is about to find out just how real it is. This is not a feel-good story about a young player hoping for a breakthrough. This is a player who has already had her breakthrough moments, who has already beaten elite opponents, who has already proven she can compete at the top of the sport, and who is now arriving at a prestigious clay court event playing the best tennis of her life. The storm is here. and its name is Alexandra Eala.